Welcome back to Katana TCG. In this week's early deck preview, we're going to be talking about the 4-arm fisticuff monstrosity that is Machamp VMAX. Let's dive in. When it's time to flex on your opponents in Top Cut this season, or even just upgrade your TCG accessories, make sure you're checking out inkgaming.com. They have a wide variety of custom playmats, custom dice bags, face masks, as well as mouse pads too, and a grip of sleeves and dice and deck boxes, all your TCG accessory needs. And you can use the code DADSPOD10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order from inkgaming.com. Your game, your style. It was recently brought to my attention that my viewers like to take an early look at the deck list as an overview to kind of see the card count, so here's your moment to do so. Alright, now let's dive into this deck list. Machamp appears to be one of the more aggressive VMAX that we've seen in the format, and I'm very much so looking forward to it. Machamp V, 220 HP basic fighting Pokemon. For 1 fighting and 1 colorless, does Revenge Buster for 50. If your bench Pokemon have any damage counters on them, this attack does 50 more damage. So if anything has damage counters on it, which we have the ability to do at self-inflicting, you're dealing an additional amount of damage with Revenge Buster. And for 2 fighting and 1 colorless, it does Seismic Toss for 140. If you're hitting into Arceus with just the V, that swings for 280 unless Dunsparce is in play, and that's pretty reasonable. Unfortunately, weak to Psychic, and a retreat cost of 3. Machamp VMAX, 330 HP VMAX fighting Pokemon. For 1 fighting and 1 colorless, it does Revenge Buster for 80 plus damage. If your bench Pokemon have any damage counters on them, this attack does 140 more damage. So you're dealing a whopping 220 with no additives right out the gate for 2 energy, which seems pretty good. And for 2 fighting and 1 colorless, max charge for 240, and this Pokemon can't use max charge next turn. We do have switch cards in the format right now, so you will be able to kind of combo that a little bit. But I think where we live is really the Revenge Buster, because it requires so few energy to actually utilize, and we have so many things in the format to bump the numbers up on these attacks. When it boils down to it, there's just no better card in terms of energy acceleration on top of having consistency than Arceus V and its V-Star. For those who don't know, Arceus V is a 220 HP basic colorless Pokemon. For 2 colorless, it does Trinity Charge. Search your deck for up to 3 basic energy. Attach them to your Pokemon V any way you like, then shuffle your deck. And then for 3 colorless, Power Edge for 130, weak to fighting, so it does make the mirror a little worse. I think this card definitely makes this deck pop off just quite a bit faster. And then a 2 retreat cost. And it's V-Star. There's just no getting away from how good this really is. For 3 colorless, Trinity Nova for 200 damage. It does the same thing as Trinity Charge. Search your deck for 3 basic energy and attach them to your Pokemon V any way you like. Then shuffle your deck. But Starbirth is the best additive to this deck, because at any given moment, if you haven't used your V-Star ability, you can use Starbirth. During your turn, you may search your deck for up to 2 cards, put them in your hand, then shuffle your deck. So if you're missing anything, the VMAX, the double turbo energy, the choice belt for knockout, the Starbirth will be able to go access that for you, and it doesn't end your turn or anything like that. So no wonder why Arceus is seeing so much success right now, because that is so handy. We've elected to go with the Bidoof and Bibarel draw engine. The Industrious Incisors, once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 5 in your hand. We discard things with Grant, we discard things with Quick Ball, we discard things with Ultra Ball to be able to draw into better resources that we need at any given time. So it was a no-brainer to pick the Bibarel line for this deck. We've also opted to tech in a 1 of Oranguru with its Primate Wisdom ability. Once during your turn, you may switch a card from your hand with the top card of your deck, and it plays very well with the Gutsy Pickaxe. So we play 4 of these because it's a great draw engine on top of Energy Accelerator. You reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a fighting energy, attach it to one of your benched Pokemon. If it's not a fighting energy, you put it into your hand. So you can put anything you need to save before a research on top of your deck so you don't lose that necessary resource, but you can also put an energy from your hand on top of your deck with Primate Wisdom, then accelerate that energy with Gutsy Pickaxe, and that doesn't count as your attachment for the turn, and you can play as many Gutsy Pickaxe as you would like per turn. So I think that this is going to be an incredibly multifaceted card. You don't need to play it in fighting decks, but I think in this specific fighting deck, it plays a huge crucial role. We're really trying to deal as much damage as possible with the Revenge Buster attack, so the Sparkling Hawlucha Big Match ability was a no-brainer for this deck. Being able to swing into opposing VMAX for 30 extra damage is so crucial to this deck. The one of Lumineon being able to go grab the Grant or the boss for the turn by being able to just put this Pokemon onto the bench, a lot like Tapu Lele GX, is so useful. We don't have the ability to attack or get this off the field, but when we play it from our hand onto our bench, we can also trigger the Revenge Buster attack with combination of the Gapejaw Bog, which we'll go into a little bit more in depth later in this discussion. We're playing 3 Professor's Research, we're playing 3 Marnie, we're playing 2 Boss's Orders, we're playing 1 Roxanne for the late game shenanigans where your opponent has taken at least 3 prizes and we bump them down to 2 cards. We play the 1 of Raihan being able to re-accelerate a basic energy out of the discard pile and go into our deck and search for any necessary resource we need to continue the board state that we have going for us. And we play 1 Grant. This is such a sick interaction, and I know we've talked about this card before in other fighting decks, but I think it's really important that we embellish on it now. During this turn, your fighting Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. But it's the second interaction that is so cool, and I want to see more of this in Pokemon in the future. During your turn, if this card is in your discard pile, you may discard 2 cards from your hand, excluding any Grant. If you do, put this card from your discard pile into your hand, and then you could reuse Grant. This is a really cool self-recycling card, and it really does have just a solid effect. We're able to thin out our hand to draw more with Bibarel, to kind of have Grant right where we need it any given moment to deal an additional 30 damage. We play 4 Quick Ball, 4 Ultra Ball, and 4 Gutsy Pickaxe to be able to just kind of draw cards off the top of our deck or potentially accelerate fighting energy onto our Pokemon. 1 Escape Rope, 2 Switch, and 1 Air Balloon. Being able to pivot to actually utilize the Gutsy Pickaxe to accelerate energy onto our bench Pokemon, then retreat or switch into the necessary attacker is very crucial. 3 Gapejaw Bog. This is what makes the whole deck work in the most efficient way possible. Whenever any player puts a basic Pokemon from their hand onto their bench, they put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. So while this is in play, if you're putting down Arceus, Machamp, Oranguru, Hawlucha, Lumineon, putting damage counters on them immediately triggers not only Revenge Buster here, but Revenge Buster here as well. So you don't need to get swung into first to be able to deal this attack. You can proactively put damage counters on your own Pokemon and make Revenge Buster deal its full effect, which is super duper important. And not only does Gapejaw Bog trigger that effect, but it does soften up your opponent's basic Pokemon as well, which is also just as important, because if you can bring their HP down while we're bumping our total damage output up, it makes for an incredibly sound synergy that has so many multifaceted effects. Adding 2 Choice Belts is really just the cherry on top. We're able to deal an additional 30 damage to our opponent's Pokemon V, but we're already having so many additives in the form of Sparkling Hawlucha as well as Grant that we could basically trigger at any given moment that we want. There just aren't a lot of Pokemon in this format that can hit 310 quite as simple as Machamp VMAX, which seems super duper busted. And Max Charge can potentially hit 330 damage with Hawlucha, Grant, and Choice Belt too. So this thing packs an incredible punch for very little energy. We're also playing 3 Double Turbo Energy as well as 8 Basic Fighting Energy. At face, Machamp VMAX appears to be one of the strongest VMAX Pokemon that requires very little to kind of get it into a solid attacking stage and getting your board state in line while bringing your opponent's HP down with the Gapejaw Bog, on top of dealing an additional amount of damage between Choice Belt, Grant, and Hawlucha. I really like where this deck is going. I know that a lot of people are shy of playing VMAX anymore given that V-Star is so strong and gives up less prizes, but I think Machamp's really going to capitalize on a lot of V-Star Pokemon given that their HP is so low and it is so easy for this particular archetype to swing for those specific numbers. I'm going to be a little bit more critical and say that Machamp VMAX is going to be like the tier 1.5 gatekeeper, if not one of the best Arceus/VMAX decks that will be in the format in the future, because it hits so hard and will punish so many of these out of the Wetwork Arceus builds, given that it swings for fighting weakness, on top of having Machamp VMAX that can literally hit just about every VMAX number very seamlessly. I think that's going to set up incredibly quick. I think it's going to be a gatekeeper of sorts, and I'm very much so looking forward to seeing it in person and played next format. Thank you for tuning into my early deck preview of Machamp VMAX. I hope you enjoyed the content. I really enjoy playing and proxying this deck, so keep coming back for stuff like this if you will. Subscribe, comment which deck you want to see next week, and make sure you like the video as well. I'm getting slowly back into streaming over at Twitch on Katana TCG. I do appreciate you guys for subscribing, following, and kind of hanging out and chat over there too. And I'll see you guys next time. Deuces. When it comes down to the nitty gritty, we're really just trying to deal a whole bunch of damage. So that Howling Sparlucha, no, that's wrong.